right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Thursday morning. Have a couple different accidents to report, one at Forum Drive and Town Center Place, another one at I-77 southbound after Decker, and then one more at Sunset between North Lake Drive and Mineral Springs. Going to be nice and hot the next couple days. High of 96 today and 98 tomorrow with plenty of sunshine. Cloudy and 95 for your Saturday. Currently 76 in downtown Columbia here near Thursday on the game. Nine o'clock Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri along with you here on the game. Boy, oh boy, Jack, we have a lot of things to get to. Obviously, the latest with Kevin Schnall, his contract, kickoff windows being announced, and the most insane comeback in NBA Finals history to cap things off last night. What a day! What a day Wednesday was, huh?
What a day indeed. Yeah, you're right about that game though last night. I'm glad I stayed up for that one. I'm looking forward to talking about that game. That was a lot of fun to watch last night.
I almost gave up on it. I was like, you know what? It's over. They're cooked. Series is going to be tied 2-2 going back to San Antonio. Glad I kept it on because, my goodness, there's a lot to unpack there, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. So that was a great game. But, yeah, we do have a lot to talk about, and a lot of stuff going on with South Carolina. Obviously, the last few days have been pretty busy, but the next few days are going to be just as busy with everything going on, especially tomorrow with Kevin Schnall being introduced as South Carolina's next head coach. But we did learn yesterday, Tyler, what the terms of this contract are, and we figured that the pay grade for Schnall would be somewhere in the $1 million range, but it ended up being exactly the same as his predecessor here at South Carolina.
Yeah, $1.3 million, the annual salary for him in the contract that was announced yesterday. The number will increase by $50,000 with a one-time bonus. There's, of course, incentives baked into this as well, depending on how far they go each season, so he can earn more depending on what they do during the respective season. But, again, we knew that it was going to be somewhere in this neighborhood. And, again, that's exactly what they were paying Paul Maneri. And for what Schnall was making at Coastal Carolina, which was $500,000, you're talking about almost tripling his salary. And as many ties and as many reasons as he had to stay at Coastal Carolina, because, again, he'd basically been a lifer there between playing and being a longtime assistant and eventually the head coach. For anybody out there listening, put yourself in those shoes. And no matter what job you're doing, if somebody comes in and offers you almost triple the salary, no matter where that job is, you're probably going to have a hard time saying no to that.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that it does set an interesting precedent because what would stop? I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking way ahead here, but what if he does a great job here at South Carolina and another school comes in and offers him, $2+ million, right? So you don't want it to be like he's just here for the money. But the way he described it was like it had to be the perfect opportunity to leave Coastal Carolina, and that's exactly what it was for him. Now, it's a little vague. I am wondering, what does that mean in terms of perfect opportunity? Because let's be honest, South Carolina is not what it was in baseball 10 years ago, maybe.
Right.
Where, they are at rock bottom right now and somebody needs to pick them up. But and again, we'll hear this directly from Kevin whenever we do get a chance to talk to him tomorrow night. But, maybe he wants to be the guy that leads this program back to success. I think that's ultimately what that means in terms of perfect opportunity. You get to be in the SEC. Obviously, the pay is great. You're going to have your resources. You're going to have so much support when it comes to baseball. Those are all things he mentioned in that first comment when he was asked about the Carolina job back on April 1st when he was at Coastal. Like, that was one of the things he mentioned, was that he has great support at Coastal Carolina and, resources and money and all that, but that needs to continue. Yeah. Now, I don't know if Coastal was not going to give that to him as much as he wanted to, but obviously he's going to get that at South Carolina and then some. So I think that makes this a really intriguing opportunity for him to be here at Carolina.
And I almost wonder if this is one of the few jobs he legitimately would have been willing to leave Coastal Carolina for. Again, we know he was in the mix for the Tennessee job when Vitello left a year ago. How high up was he on that list? We don't know, but we know he at least did interview for that job. But given the fact that he has been a lifer in this state and somebody that, obviously grew up right down the road, would understand the history of the South Carolina program. And it's got to sound pretty sweet to potentially be the guy to come in here and take them back to prominence and be that conquering hero that the South Carolina program so desperately wants, in addition to the fact that you're not that far from your home, right? If you love the, being on the coast, you love the Myrtle Beach, Conway area, you're still just down the road from that. So I don't know if you keep a house out there or whatever it may be, but you and your family can still get there pretty easily, as opposed to if you were in LSU or something like that, where you're having to fly a couple states over to go back to the place that you love so much. So you have a step up in job, you're in the SEC, and you're really close to the place that you love so much out there in Conway. So I think it all just kind of works out. In addition to the cut to the salary, it all works out to kind of be the perfect storm of the exact type of job that Schnall would have been willing to leave Coastal for.
No, absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from him more perspective on like why exactly this was the time to leave Coastal Carolina. Because again, could have left last year when Tennessee, interviewed him for the job out there. And, I would argue to some extent Tennessee could be a better job than South Carolina right now. Long term, I think South Carolina is the better job when South Carolina is good at baseball. But, Tennessee, that's a good situation. Why leave for South Carolina? I mean, and maybe it does have to do with what you just mentioned there, Tyler. It's in state. It's literally to Myrtle Beach. It's like
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. So, there's a lot of reason there, but obviously the compensation is nice. There are a few interesting things here to note with this contract. So the contract term would be extended by 1 year if the program does make it to a super regional or college World Series. So that you could see this contract running through 2032, which would be a 6-year deal then. And then you got the buyout. South Carolina is going to be paying the buyout to Coastal Carolina, which is $600,000. And yeah, I mean, and then the buyout for South Carolina, if they were to fire Schnall without cause, would be 65% of his annual base salary. So I don't know exactly what that would be if they fired him after, let's say, year 2. But it's probably going to be in the couple millions if they're firing him that soon. But hopefully not.
And tomorrow night, there'll be the welcome party over at Founders Park. Doors open at 7:30. We'll start at 8:30. It's free to everyone. Free concessions, fan giveaways, fireworks for the formal introduction of Kevin Schnall. Are we not going to have like an introductory presser, or is this going to serve as it? Do you know that yet?
So, yeah, I understand having the fan of it. I think this is all really because of what Mississippi State did last year with Brian O'Connor. I'm sure South Carolina looked at this and they're like, oh, wait, we can do something like that? Okay. So I think it feels like it's taking inspiration from that event last year, because the press conference is tomorrow night, but it doesn't start until 9:30 p.m.
Oh, so it's after. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Why couldn't it have been before? Beats me. I got no clue. But yeah, 9:30 p.m. for a press conference. That's a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be a good night for the fans. It's going to be a late night for us media folks.
No, that's a fun event. That's a cool way to introduce your coach. It's just having the press conference after that's definitely something unique. I mean, I'm glad we'll be able to hear from him, because again, when you're at an event like this, it's not like you guys are going to be out there on the field asking him questions in front of the public or something like that. So we will get more of the formal press conference afterwards, I guess. But that's just not what I was expecting, I guess.
No, neither was I, but it's definitely different than how they introduced Maneri. I mean, can you imagine they did something like this for Maneri and then South Carolina goes on to have the exact same type of lack of success they had? I mean, the memes would be off the charts. Now, the same thing could very well happen to Schnall if things don't go well here at South Carolina. But
Sure.
I think a lot of people are optimistic that this hire is going to be the right one for the future of this program to get back on track.
Well, I think because of how bad it was under Paul Maneri, that almost prompts you to do something like this when you hire a guy like Schnall, because, again, you're looking at him as like, hey, this is a guy that's going to drag us out of this gutter and get us back to being relevant again. So you do want to, like, I guess, celebrate that in a more over-the-top kind of way.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think you also want to get the fans excited again. I think that is something that they are missing right now is the excitement. Like, yes, they've hired Kevin Schnall. That's going to get a lot of people, back to feeling like energetic about the program. But ultimately, man, we've talked about this thing a million times. You're not getting everyone back until you start winning games. It is a fact of life that you have got to have success on the field for people to come back into the building. Otherwise, same thing's going to happen like what happened with Maneri here, where nobody's coming to games, nobody cares. People have shown you for multiple years now, like this past season and the year before that, and shoot, even with the basketball program, if you're not winning games, people are not coming to spend money. It is as simple as that. So, yeah, you can do all these different events and whatnot and get the people excited before the season. And people will show up, I think, when the season gets going, for sure.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that are in that building. But until you really start winning games, you're not going to get the full support of everyone back at the ballpark.
Everybody is going to go into this, and I think in a wait-and-see type of mentality. And you're right. I think that opening weekend against whatever mid-major team decides to come down here for that opening series, there'll be a lot of people out there. Then you may have even a sellout for your first couple games because of the excitement of making that Schnall hire. But as we know, playing the Sacred Hearts and the Princetons and teams like that doesn't really tell us how good this team's going to be. If you're losing those games, that's a different story. But winning those games doesn't exactly make people feel great. That Clemson series is going to be huge. If you can go in to that Clemson series and take 2 out of 3, certainly, especially if you can win the game in the upstate, that's going to make people feel pretty good. And then if you start winning in the SEC, that's where that belief's going to come in. But understandably so, I think people are going to be reserved until they see those results on the field.
And can you really blame them?
No.
I don't blame anyone that's like, yeah, I mean, and honestly, I'm kind of the same way. And like, yeah, I think this is a good hire, but I can't say it's like a grand slam home run hire. I refuse to use that language here because I think I said Ray Tanner made a home run hire with Paul Maneri, and guess how that turned out, right? Yeah. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this is going to be the right hire. I think he is a good hire, but I'm cautiously optimistic on how things are going to be until we get to see how the roster is, right? Because right now it's a bunch of Coastal guys coming in. Who else is coming back? Who is coming in from the transfer portal? What's the coaching staff going to look like? How is the team going to mesh on the field? We'll get to see this in fall ball in the preseason, but we really won't know what this team is or isn't until we get to the start of the season. And really at that point, by the time we get to SEC play, that's when we'll have the perfect indication of what South Carolina will look like in 2027.
We'll hear from Kevin Schnall briefly in the video that got put out on Twitter last night, as well as take a look at some of those guys coming over from Coastal and what we maybe can expect out of them as they become South Carolina Gamecocks as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Thursday on the Game.
Gamecock Nation, my name is Kevin Schnall, your new head baseball coach. You are such a valuable part of our success moving forward. We need you back in Founders Park to make this one of the most electric venues in college baseball.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you here on your Thursday on the Game. That was Kevin Schnall giving his first introduction as South Carolina's head baseball coach on Twitter yesterday to the tune of Party Like a Rock Star. What age does that song, or do you associate that song with, Jack? Did that come out when you were in like fourth grade or something? Do you remember?
Let's see. I don't know off the top of my head when it came out. Party.
Because I was in like sixth or seventh grade, something like that.
2007?
I was in sixth grade.
I think I would have been in second grade.
Okay.
That's
so
crazy.
Maybe you don't have the same association to that song as I do, but setting the vibes for what hopefully is going to be a nice party with Kevin Schnall as the head coach here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think tomorrow night is going to be, the media thing starting at 9:30 aside, which is that's a whole nother thing. I think the fan event is going to be very well done. I hope it's very well done. It sounds like it is. There's going to be free food, free drinks. Unfortunately for the fans, no free beer like they wanted during the season when during Paul's last game where they chanted, "We want free beer." So no free beer, unfortunately. But they will be serving beer for purchase. But yeah, man, I think it's going to be a really cool atmosphere. There's going to be fireworks. You're going to hear from Schnall. Like, this is supposed to get this fan base fired up. And I think you're going to – we talked about in the last segment, like, you're going to have to win these fans back. And the way you do that is by winning baseball games. But I think you can get off to a little bit of a head start with some folks by going ahead and having a really fun night tomorrow at Founders Park.
I tell you how he can win over any fans that may not be sold on him at this event when he gets the microphone saying beer's on me and paying for everybody's beer while he's there.
Honestly, if somebody gives him the context of the "We want free beer" chant from the last game of the dreadful Maneri era when they lost 22-6 to Arkansas, then I think there's a case to be made that he should be able to pick up the tab because he's getting paid pretty handsomely now.
What would it cost? I don't know. How many people does Founders Park hold?
I think 8,200.
Okay, so and there'll be standing room people as well. So let's round that number out to an even 9,000. Not all of them are beer drinkers, so let's say half of them are. So 4,500 beers. How much will that cost? Let's say I don't know, what are beers at Founders Park? $4 or $5 a piece?
I don't know about that. 4 or 5. I always hear people complaining about how much beer costs. And again, I have not had a beer at Founders Park because I'm on the job and I can't drink. So I don't know.
Well, let's just go to the high end. Let's just say it's $8 a piece, and that may not be right. I don't know. I've not bought a beer there either. But even if at $8 a piece for 4,500 people, that would only cost $36,000.
Jeez, I mean, it's a lot it's like getting a ticket to the Knicks game, man.
Yeah, you could sit front row. Well, you may not even sit front row for $36,000, but you could sit maybe near the vicinity of Taylor Swift at a Knicks game, or you could buy half of Founders Park free beer.
That's pretty good. So yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like filled up. I'm sure. I think it's supposed to be sectioned off at Founders Park, so it's only a few sections, probably like behind home plate or whatever. So you'll get probably a couple thousand people there, but we'll see, man. I think it's going to be a really good event. I'm looking forward to being out there tomorrow night.
Well, we already know what a lot of next year's team is going to look like in terms of the guys coming over from Coastal Carolina following Kevin Schnall, and went through some of the guys yesterday. Hayden Johnson, Colby Richardson, Daniel Parker, Luke Jones, as well as Jackson Weiner as a possible pitcher's. Weiner is a two-way guy, so he can also play first base as well. And then Bryce Eastep at catcher, and Walker Mitchell, the utility infielder, son of Alan Mitchell, legacy obviously. So you get bringing a variety of guys between pitchers and guys that can play in the infield as well. And some of these guys, their numbers really do stand out to you, and I think there should be excitement for seeing them playing in Gamecock uniforms.
I think I got this question yesterday. Are these guys, I can't remember the way it was exactly phrased, are these guys SEC ready, or are they just guys to, the way it was phrased is, are they SEC ready or are they just roster coverage? And I fully disagree with the notion that they're just filling up roster spots. That is clearly not the case. You're bringing these guys in, and they're going to be day one impact guys. Like Hayden Johnson and Luke Jones, that's 2/3 of your weekend rotation right there.
Mm-hmm.
I know Johnson's never started before in college, but his stuff is good enough to start in college now that he's going to be back from injury. So, yeah, I mean, that's 2/3 of your rotation right there. I think you get Daniel Parker, Colby Richardson, guys like that helping out in the bullpen. You know, Bryce Eastep, South Carolina doesn't have another catcher on the roster right now, so he would ideally be the starter right now, but I'm sure they're going to make a move in the transfer portal. Maybe they'll bring back, Reese Moore potentially. And then Walker Mitchell, I mean, that's a guy that's starting in the infield somewhere, whether it's at third base, second base, anywhere in the infield. That guy's going to be starting for you and probably going to be one of the leaders on the team this year. So all the guys you bring in, and Weiner, I think Weiner's a guy that, he DH'd for a lot for Coastal Carolina as a freshman. I don't know what his role is going to be just yet, because what do you do? He's a first baseman, so do you try and bring back Bo Hollins? I think you would definitely like to bring him back as a switch-hitting 6'4" first baseman, but time will tell. But I expect most, if not all, of these guys to have some sort of impact and role on the 27 team here at South Carolina.
You mentioned Hayden Johnson, and he did miss this season with an elbow injury, but I looked back at some of his numbers last year, particularly when it came to the NCAA tournament. In his last 4 outings, all against Power 4 opponents, he combined to go 9 innings, only giving up 5 hits, 1 earned run with 12 strikeouts. So again, that's against the best of the best competition in the NCAA tournament. So a small snapshot of what he's capable of, where he's potentially looking at being a weekend starter, here at South Carolina. Luke Jones, again, his numbers speak for himself. Good strikeout to walk ratio there. You mentioned Walker Mitchell. He's a 300 hitter. He was also among the best in the Sun Belt when it came to getting hit by pitches. So that's a guy that's going to crowd the plate and get on base a lot. So, a lot of reasons to be excited about these guys. And look, this is a Coastal team that, yes, played in the Sun Belt, but obviously went all the way to the College World Series final a year ago. So this team was good enough to advance to that with a lot of these same guys. So you would think that talent would translate well to the SEC.
And to answer the other part of that question I got the other day, I think they're going to be SEC ready because of what we saw with those guys. I mean, most of those guys were very impactful on that 25 team that advanced all the way to the College World Series final. So, yeah, you're right. Like you mentioned it, they were going up against really good competition and going toe-to-toe with, the national champions with LSU. And even though they lost both games, they were still in those games against that team. So, yeah, I mean, time will tell how it translates when they're playing a full SEC schedule. But I think what we're going to see with Schnall is just such better talent evaluation and bringing in guys, whether it's from, guys that were on last year's team or bringing more guys in from Coastal or adding guys from the transfer portal. I think we're going to see what could be a pretty good roster that gives you a chance to potentially turn things around starting next season.
Well, and what bringing in these 6 guys with you from Coastal does is it sets a solid foundation. And look, we talked about it. Schnall has his own philosophy with Schnall ball and all that kind of stuff. And you have 6 guys that we expect all to play very important roles on this team that already know what the deal is. So as guys are coming in, not only is Schnall coaching them up in terms of what he's trying to do, but you have other guys on this team that understand the concepts, that understand what Schnall ball is all about. They can help their teammates get up to speed so everybody can be on the same page by the time the season rolls around. So again, bring in, and that may not be all the Coastal guys that are coming in here. There are plenty of others in the transfer portal as well, but bringing in 6 guys immediately alongside Kevin Schnall sets a good foundation for what this roster should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you got a good bones of the roster right now. Now you got to figure out which guys are you bringing back, because there's definitely some guys I think that can help you from South Carolina next year. And then after that, do you bring in more Coastal guys? Do you try to get some guys from the high school ranks? Is it too late for that? And then you look at the transfer portal, filling out the rest of the roster. Like, this year is going to be a little bit of an experimental year, I think. to see what happens. And I don't think anyone would be, you would fault him for not having success in year one. But by year two, that's when I think you really hit the ground running with this whole team and program moving forward.
Well, and like Ryan McGee told us yesterday when we talked to him from ESPN, he's excited to see, Schnall be able to go out there and shop in the portal, right? Because he's going to have more resources than he's ever had before. So I'm interested to see how he allocates more money than he's ever had as a head coach when it comes to portal spending and what kind of talent he can bring in to fill out the rest of this roster.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what this roster does look like. But I think right now he's done a great job of bringing some key guys in with him from Coastal.
A lot of reason to be excited for what the 2027 baseball season is going to be, but we got to play some football before that. And we found out yesterday the broadcast windows for the remaining SEC games for South Carolina. We'll discuss those coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher with you on your Thursday here on the game. You heard the countdown there in the break. 86 days away from football season getting started. We'll tell you about the number 86 coming up in the 10 o'clock hour. Also in the 10, by the way, Chris Clark sits down with South Carolina linebacker Donovan Darden, and we learned about him as he gets set for his second year here at South Carolina. But as we approach the start of the season, yesterday we had the special on the SEC Network to find out the remaining broadcast windows for all SEC games this upcoming season. Did I miss this? Because I didn't see any promotion about this until like a couple hours before.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. I'm glad you said that. So yesterday, I think I texted you. Yesterday was crazy busy because, wedding planning is insanely crazy, man.
Yes, it is.
Like we're now 13 months out from the wedding.
You're 13 months out, and you think it's like it feels like it's 13 days away, right?
Dude, it's absolutely nuts. Like we're right now in the process of trying to find a reception venue, and boy, it takes up a lot of time. So, and we haven't found one yet. So it's tough. Like we have options, but anyway. So yeah, I mean that we were doing that most of yesterday.
Yeah,
and then I get home, I go for a walk, and then I see on Twitter, oh, the kickoff windows have been revealed, and I'm like, I totally forgot about that. So I like scurried on home, got the story up, and I'm just like, where was the promotion for this thing? Like I knew it was coming up, but honestly, dude, I had totally forgotten this thing even was going to be happening. So I don't know. I mean, I did joke yesterday. I'm like, yeah, if only the SEC had better promotion for this thing, then maybe we all would have known it was going on.
Honestly, I saw a tweet at like 4 p.m. or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is happening tonight. And I don't know, maybe I've not been watching enough SEC Network lately, and maybe they've been promoting this, but I was not aware of it until yesterday afternoon. And again, like, it just further shows you how much the SEC knows they can put something like this in front of us, and we're going to watch it because it's not even telling us the kickoff times. It's telling us the potential windows of what those are going to be, because you have the afternoon, which is between 12 and 1 o'clock. You have between 12 and 1 o'clock. You have afternoon, which is either 3:30 or 4:30. You have night, which is 6 to 8 p.m., and then flex, which could mean afternoon or night. So for Carolina, you got a couple of nights in there, couple earlies, few afternoons, and several flexes as well. What stands out to you from what we got yesterday for South Carolina?
A lot of flexes. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 flex games right now that could be in the afternoon. They could be at night. So I think you only have 2 afternoon games as of right now. Well, 3 in total if you include Mississippi State, which we already knew about. But yeah, that means you're only going to have 2 early kicks as of right now. Now, Clemson is TBD. If history tells us anything, Tyler, it could also be an early kick. So, but at most, you'd have 3 early kicks this year. I think you got to take that, to be honest. I mean, the rest of these game slots, you're going to basically be playing 3:30 or later for majority of your games this year. I think that's a win for South Carolina in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right now, the Kent State game's 12:45, so you're not set up to have a single nooner at home this year. You'll play early at Florida, and that's it. And again, the Clemson game could be a noon kick, but that'd be on the road. So it doesn't look like you're going to have any 12 o'clock kicks at Williams-Brice this year.
Which I think is pretty good. I mean, you'll get the 12:45 kick, but beyond that, yeah, I think this is it breaks down pretty well for the fans, I would say. And I think if there's any game I think that they really won on, I really feel like it's probably got to be, that night game at Alabama. I think Alabama at night's going to be a really cool atmosphere. I know that's a road game for Bama or for South Carolina, but I think that type of game, given how the last 2 years have gone with these games that they've played, I think is going to make for a really interesting Week 4 matchup, since I do anticipate both teams being undefeated by that week.
And like you said, after that, you have 4 flex games between at home against Kentucky, on the road at Oklahoma, on the road at Arkansas, and then at home against Georgia in the penultimate week of the regular season. That tells me that is all dependent on how good South Carolina is going to be. Because, again, you have the night game at Alabama where realistically you could go into that game 3-0 after beating Kent State, Towson, and Mississippi State to start the season. But as you go through the rest of the year, if South Carolina is really good, they're ranked inside the top 25, then absolutely going to Oklahoma on Halloween, that could be a 7:30 kick. Going to Arkansas late in the season could be a late kick. Georgia at home, that could be the ABC game of the week. For all we know, both those teams are really, really good. So that's giving ESPN the ability to say, hey, we think Carolina might have a chance of being good, and if so, we have an opportunity to put them in prime time a lot if that's the case.
Yeah, which I think that is coming off of last season. I think it would have been easy to put South Carolina in a lot of early kick slots, maybe even afternoon. Like, for all we know, these flex windows could be in the afternoon. But guess what? I think it's a lot better for the fans that these games could potentially be at 3:30 or 4 o'clock compared to the alternative of playing first thing on in the morning at noon. So I think the fans win here a lot, and there's a lot of potential that if Carolina's good, some of these games could be at night. Like, I think Kentucky very well could be a night game. I think, you get Georgia as another night game too, potentially. Those are the only real two home games you could have at night. But, yeah, I think the schedule does shake out pretty well in terms of time slots.
I have a feeling Arkansas on November 14th on the road, that just screams 4:15 SEC Network to me. I don't know why. I don't anticipate Arkansas is going to be phenomenal this year. And even if Carolina's good, I feel like that's a game they just kind of like stash on the SEC Network in the middle of the day.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. I don't know what the rest of the schedule is that day, but, yeah, that to me screams. If both teams are like 5-4 or something, yeah, I think that screams 4 o'clock kick.
Well, I'm glad you asked because that is week number 11, and that day you're also going to get Ole Miss and Oklahoma. You're going to get Texas and LSU. You're going to have Tennessee and Texas A&M. So some pretty heavy hitters that day. And in terms of what those windows are, the other flex games that day are Missouri and Georgia, Texas and LSU, and then Tennessee and A&M. So, yeah, I feel like you're probably getting kind of stuffed on the SEC Network at 4:15 because of the games you're going up against.
Potentially. But, I think if I had to bet on any of these games being at night, I mean, I feel like Kentucky and, I don't know, Oklahoma to me on Halloween kind of screams night game.
Yeah, which, I mean, hey, and that for Alabama, too, going on the road at night is obviously always going to be very, very tough, so that does present more of a challenge. But, again, if this team can be as good as we hope they can be, hopefully that won't be a problem.
Yeah, no, but I think, I think the fans win out here with the way the schedule does shake out.
And as always, we'll find out the official kick times as we get closer to those games as the season does roll along. All right, up next, we got to unpack what happened at the Garden last night because, oh my goodness, if you turn the game off early, you missed an all-time comeback by the Knicks. We'll discuss it coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Thursday on the game.
Go flat for Jalen Brunson, allow him to operate at the top, 1-on-1.
Brunson gets it, fires up a three. Shot no good, the chip, it's gone! It's gone! It's gone! With 1.2 remaining, Knicks take the lead. OG Anunoby, and it's 107-106.
Welcome back into the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Felcher with you on your Thursday. I don't really know the words to describe what I saw last night other than wow. The Knicks down 29 at one point in the third quarter, complete the biggest comeback in NBA Finals history. OG Anunoby with the putback there with a little over a second to go to complete it, 107-106, and now they take a 3-1 series advantage over the Spurs. Wow, Jack.
I'm at a loss for words, man. That was one of the craziest games I've ever seen. And I think, honestly, man, I think the series is over. I do.
It's 1,000% over.
I don't like to call something like that when it's still very much ongoing, that we've seen crazy things happen before. I think the series is done. I think the Spurs just dug the grave with their own coffin. Like, how does that happen, man? Spurs were dominating this game. They were up by 29 points at halftime. I mean, the Knicks looked dead. Now, granted, the Spurs could not miss a single shot in that first half, it felt like. And eventually, some misses were going to start coming. And when they did, the Knicks were playing perfect basketball, going on multiple double-digit .0 runs. I mean, that was really what got them back into this game, because they cut that lead down from, I think they went on a 13-0 run to cut the lead down to like 15. And it's like, okay, there's still a lot of time. You got a chance, but it's going to you got to continue to dominate the rest of this game. And that's exactly what the Knicks did. And man, I mean, those final minutes, I mean, what was your reaction when, I mean, there's multiple plays you could talk about, like Josh Hart missing the wide open layup that would have given the Knicks the lead for at that first point there.
Yep.
And then De'Aaron Fox. I mean, what was he doing there, trying to go up for the layup when you get the steal? Just dribble the ball out, get fouled, go to the free throw line. You have a better chance of scoring points that way than just going up and you get blocked, and that gives the Knicks the chance to go and do what they did. And how about that tip-in by OG Anunoby? I think that was easily the play of the night. Such a heads-up athletic play made there. And he has been a star for the Knicks during this postseason run here. But last night, he came up huge.
Yeah, and the tip-in's what's going to go down in history and lore with the Knicks fan base. But that block right before that on what shouldn't have even been an layup attempt is what really needs to not be forgotten either, in terms of what it meant to set up for that play a couple seconds later. So, yeah, insane comeback because the Spurs had their biggest lead of 29 with about 9.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. It was 81-52 at that point in time. From that moment on, the Spurs went 6 of 35 from the field, and the Knicks went 20 of 38. They played, like you said, phenomenal basketball down the stretch of those final 20-ish minutes of the game, and the Spurs just completely self-imploded. And it was an example. Once again, we had this the other day with Wembanyama making the mistakes in Game 2, I think that was, where he had the turnover and missed the jumper there at the very end. You had Wembanyama miss 2 free throws there at the very end. And then Stephon Castle, when he gets the opportunity to potentially win the game in the final seconds, cannot get a shot up. Again, the Spurs are one of the youngest teams out there. Their core of players are very, very young. And in those critical moments, deep in the waters of a playoff game like that, youth is really showing itself, unfortunately.
No, totally. And look, the Knicks have kind of been in these spots before. I mean, they've been on deep postseason runs, and granted, this is their first time back in the finals in 27 years. But, man, they're playing like a team that is experienced, and really, even when times got tough in this game, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow when you're down by 29 points at one point. And it's like, how do you get yourself back up? Well, I mean, look, the Spurs, they started missing shots, and then the Knicks, they really had to play flawless basketball in that second half. And when you outscore the Spurs 26-14 in the third quarter, and then 32-16 in the fourth quarter. I mean, the Spurs only had 30 points after halftime. So tremendous job by the defense, obviously, to force all those missed shots. But at the same time, the Knicks got clutch performances. I mean, Brunson had 36. OG had 33. That's why the Knicks won that game there.
Yeah, and think of the situation the Spurs found themselves in, because we talked about it the other day. When they won game number 3, all right, you've taken the first game in New York. You took the crowd out of it like you did last night until the very end there when they were making their comeback. You had the opportunity to even the series and take it back to San Antonio, where then it becomes just a best of 3, and you got the first game in your own barn with all the momentum on your side, and you completely threw that out the window. Maybe they win the game on Saturday night to make it a 3-2 series, but I have zero belief the Spurs can complete a comeback and win this series. It's over.
They do get 2 games at home, but you got to. That's the thing. There's no guarantee we're going to game 6 or 7 here. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Spurs can get a game on their home court, get the series back to New York for game 6, but I don't think the Spurs are winning the series. I think the Knicks just have too much momentum right now, and quite frankly, if I had to bet on it, I think the Knicks are winning Game 5 on Saturday. I think that is where this thing is heading. You don't come back alive from what happened on yesterday. I mean, you blew a 29-point lead, had multiple opportunities down the stretch, even after blowing the lead, to win that game, and you couldn't get the job done. There's just no chance the Spurs are winning this series.
And there were a lot of people that were critical of the crowd in Game 1 because after the start of the game, they weren't as hot as maybe you thought they were going to be, and that wasn't the reason why the Spurs won, but it certainly didn't help the Knicks in that regard. But let me tell you, in those final couple of minutes, that fourth quarter, that crowd was as hot as you'll ever see in a basketball game, and they rightfully gave the pop that game deserved at the very end.
Oh man, the crowd was absolutely nuts these last 2 games, and selfishly, I kind of do hope we get back to a game 6 so the Knicks can potentially clinch on their home floor. I think that would be nuts, but I do think they're going to take care of business on Saturday out there in San Antonio.
Yep, 3-1 series lead for the Knicks as of right now as it heads back to San Antonio for game number 5 on Saturday. Hour number 1 of the books. We'll get to our 86 days until kickoff countdown coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the first hour here, let me tell you guys about our friends over at AAA Heating and Air, where home comfort is their top priority. Give a call today, 803-677-1500 to schedule a seasonal maintenance appointment. Let AAA Heating and Air's qualified technicians put your mind at ease with a thorough inspection and cleaning of your heating and cooling system. Join their popular AAA Comfort Club to take advantage of special extras such as flexible visits, added discounts, and priority scheduling. AAA Heating and Air also offers indoor air quality products that work with your HVAC system to improve your home's air quality. Cleaning the air eliminates common household odors, removes allergens, pollutants, and can even improve sleep and reduce the spread of some viruses. So go to callAAAtoday.com. Again, callAAAtoday.com for more info. Tell them Jack from 107.5 The Game sent you on over.
Welcome back in, hour number 2. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri, it's the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing on your Thursday here on the game. Coming up in about 15 minutes, you'll hear Chris Clark's conversation with Donovan Darden, second-year linebacker for South Carolina football, as he gets set for his sophomore season. So looking forward to hearing from him. And Chris will join me at the end of the hour to recap all of that. We'll get into our 86 days until kickoff countdown in just a moment, but our guy Russ weighs in on the Firehouse Ups text line at 803-404-6100. He says, I can definitely see why people say the NBA is rigged. Not really an NBA fan, but was watching last night. Snooze fest blowout in the first half and then wind up losing. I'm sure there were a lot of people that maybe put their tinfoil caps on after that one. And watching the game last night, again, I don't have a dog in the fight here, but for the Knicks fans that thinks that the Spurs were getting preferential calls, I can see where you're coming from with that, especially with what happened in the first couple of minutes there with Cat getting called for the offensive foul on what looked like it should have been something on Wembanyama. I can understand where the conspiracies are coming from with that kind of stuff.
I think the officiating's been pretty bad on both sides, though, man. I mean, I don't know. I've seen Knicks fans complaining a ton about the officiating, so I think it goes both ways.
By the way, Wembanyama is one flagrant away from a suspension, by the way, now.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because he got called for the one later in the game. I forget who he gave the elbow to. Was it Cat? Did he give the Cat elbow to Cat? Or did he give the elbow to Cat? He gave the elbow to somebody. It looked more like incidental contact, but still, it ended up being a flagrant regardless. And yeah, it's been a chippy series so far.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been an entertaining series too. I think, we've been treated some really good games between the NBA and then the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, this is a good time to be a sports fan right now in the month of June as we savor the final few games of these championship series.
Well, that's the thing. It's all going to go not radio silent because you still have Major League Baseball, and we'll obviously have college baseball wrapping up here in the next week. But by the time you get to July 1st, it's like, okay, now we're just really counting down until football gets here as we're navigating through the dog days of summer with baseball, which, hey, if you're like us and fans of the Braves and the Yankees who are having good seasons, that's still fun because you're still chasing those teams and then looking ahead to the postseason. If you're a fan of a team that sucks right now, that's not as fun.
No, definitely not. But 86 days away from college football, so that's always good to see.
86 days away, and I do this countdown every single day as a means for us to dive into a different element of this team, but it's also an educational process for myself to help learn the history of this program. And I always like to look at stat sheets. I like to look at the record books, and I also like to look back at the respective season that the countdown number correlates to see if I can find anything interesting. And this is one of those situations where I really wish our friend Tommy Moody was still around, because I know he could have given me a whole encyclopedia's worth of knowledge on more things about the 1986 season, because there's just not as many resources out there to read about it online as there is, seasons that are currently happening or have happened in the past couple of years. But in looking at the 1986 season, one thing did stand out to me, and I found some reporting on this as well, a lot of near misses for South Carolina. A lot of games against really good teams that were very, very close, namely a 5-point loss to Georgia in an insane game where Georgia's quarterback put the ball on the turf as time expired. South Carolina picks the ball up, advances it in the end zone, but the rule at the time did not allow you to advance a fumble unless you caught it in the air. So the game ended and Georgia ends up winning that one by 5. They played number 3 Nebraska in a tight game. They lost by 3 where Todd Ellis threw a pick in the red zone. And then they tied Clemson 21-all after missing a short 31-yard field goal towards the very end of that game. So 3 good teams that they played that season, and they came up just short in all those games for a season for South Carolina there where they went 3-6-2. And, man, what does that sound like? That sounds like last year for South Carolina where you played a lot of good teams really close but couldn't seem to get the job done.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was the story of the season last year. It felt like every game, South Carolina, for the most part, outside of like the Oklahoma game and maybe like one other one that I'm just like not remembering off the top of my head, Like, it always felt like South Carolina was in a bit of a dogfight heading into the second half of the fourth quarter. And the common theme that we have talked about this entire offseason is that they could never truly finish. And if they were able to finish games, we're talking about a team that flipped those losses around. We're talking about a team that maybe goes 8-4, 9-3, has a lot of success if they won those games that were one-score contests going into the fourth quarter. But the problem was they were never able to finish out strong near the end of the game. So they were able to get the game close, but they couldn't get it done by the end.
I mean, if you just look back on last year for South Carolina, if you're just able to hold on to the A&M game, okay, now you've gotten to 5 wins. If you're able to, get a late stop against Alabama, boom, you're at 6 wins. You change the fortune in 2 of those games, you're 6-6, you're at the very least going to a bowl game. Again, there's a lot of factors that went into why they weren't able to close last year. And as we say a lot, people got so sick of Beamer saying, man, we're so close, we're so close, we're so close. He wasn't wrong. You were in pretty much all these games in the fourth quarter. And even the Oklahoma game, I think it was 17-7 midway through the third quarter. So you were still relatively close. Now, again, did we have faith the offense was going to be able to score 10 points to make it a game? No. But still, realistically speaking, you weren't that far out of that game, all things considered. But you obviously didn't do enough offensively to get it done. And this is where you hope the changes made this offseason, particularly to the offense, is going to allow you the ability to close these games out and perform better in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing, is that you've got to find every way possible to be better in the fourth quarter. And I think South Carolina has seemingly done that this offseason. Again, beyond just the new coaches on staff, the new players, et cetera, like those types of changes, we've seen them change up the way they're doing practice, and the structure of everything just feels different. And I think that's all to just never have that feeling of how last year went. And I think a big part of why last year was a struggle was the fourth quarter play, where they just could not get the job done in a lot of those tight-knit games. So that's going to be, and again, it's great that they're doing that. South Carolina is going to be back in those spots again this year where they are in those tight games. And that's when we're really going to learn how much different this team is, if they are different at all from how last year went.
Well, and I think a lot of that goes to conditioning as well, right? Like, you have to be conditioned not only physically but mentally in the late stages of games like that to be able to win. Look, we saw them do that pretty well back in 2024. For whatever reason, they had those mental lapses in terms of the penalties they were making, decisions by guys like Lenore Sellers when it came to turnovers late in those kind of games. You have to, and Beamer's talked about it, you have to assess everything when you have a season as bad as 4-8 was a year ago to try and leave no stone unturned. And again, starting in 86 days, again, Kent State and Towson probably won't tell us a whole lot, but we'll begin to learn if this team has truly learned its lesson and gotten better in those areas from last year. Because I can tell you this much, you're unlikely to blow out many opponents in the SEC. If you're going to win these games, they're probably going to be four-quarter dogfights, especially for some of these games you have on the road, like at Alabama, like at Oklahoma, and things like that.
Some of these games are going to be barn burners, man. I mean, you got to be ready to dominate. As long as you get these games to the fourth quarter and they're relatively tight and you're a good fourth quarter team, like that's the other thing, Tyler. We have seen through the first few years of the Beamer era, South Carolina, I can't remember what their record was like the first 3 or 4 years in the fourth quarter of like close games, but they were really good under Beamer. So that's the thing, is that there is proof in the pudding that they can be good in those moments, but recency bias tells us that they aren't because of last year. So can you get back to being that type of team that dominates down the stretch? That's going to be the key this season.
Yeah, and again, I think, we placed a lot of blame on so many things going wrong last year on the Shula offense, and we anticipate that Kendall Brow's offense being able to score at a higher clip and being more consistent should hopefully alleviate some of those concerns. Again, we got to wait and see it and see it before we actually believe it, but there's a lot of reason to think that should be better in a lot of regards. And again, if you can score points in all 4 quarters of games, you're going to have the opportunity to win, and we'll see how they fare when they do get into the deep water of some of those games that we know they're going to be in this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're going, that's one thing we know for sure. They're going to be in those spots down the stretch. How many times? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But I have a feeling a lot of these SEC games you'll get to play some blowouts early on in the year, and that'll be good. But that does not prepare you for what is to come. Like, maybe Mississippi State will be an early test of a dogfight and I think that game could be so critical for a lot of reasons because, yeah, I think that is exactly what you want. You get into a close game and you prevail early on. The sooner that South Carolina can figure that out of winning a tight game in the fourth quarter and prevailing, I think that's going to take such a big weight off their shoulders because they were never able to truly accomplish that feat last year. Once they figure it out, it's like, okay, hey, we can go out here and we can do this. And I think that could serve them very well. The sooner that happens, the better, because you still have a lot of season left to go.
And again, the reason we talk about this is because the 1986 team had so many near misses. Again, the loss to Georgia, the loss to number 3 Nebraska, the tie with Clemson. Well, the very next season, they went 8-4. So they were able to turn it around from all the heartbreaks of 1986 and made 1987 a whole lot better in a season where they went to the Gator Bowl, beat a top 10 Clemson team in the process. And we're hoping this team can follow a similar path this upcoming season to where, again, we can talk about, we have positive things to talk about, right? Like, this team was dead in the water roughly halfway through the season last year. We knew Schnall was on his way to getting fired. The vibes were not fun at all, and here's hoping we can return to something closer to 2 seasons ago, because that makes it more fun for all of us, media members, fans, and everybody else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Things are a lot better when this team is doing well. Obviously, you can say that for all sports here. It just makes it a lot better, but yeah, I mean, it does start with football here because that is the next sport on the calendar.
Well, and of course, football being as successful as they were a couple seasons ago was right in line with all of men's sports kind of being in a good place for the most part. And obviously, since that Clemson win at the end of the 2024 season, nothing has been the same. So here's something, I don't know, maybe the Schnall hire is the spark to get all men's sports back on track. That's the positive vibes that's going to resonate through the athletic department or the athletic building across the street, and it's going to make football better, it's going to make men's basketball better, and it's going to make baseball better as well.
It needs to, man. It needs to. I think these fans deserve something worthwhile to watch over the next 3 sports, so we'll see.
This is a tortured fan base, that is certainly for sure. We'll get to our 85 days countdown coming up tomorrow to wrap up the week. Coming up next, as the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing rolls along, Chris Clark sitting down with second-year linebacker Donovan Darden. That's coming up next here on the Garnet Trust Hour on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, welcome in. It's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Chris Clark hanging out with you for the next little while. Got another special guest from the South Carolina Gamecocks football program. It's linebacker Donovan Darden. Donovan, hope you're doing well, man. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, appreciate the time as always, man. So, first of all, we're in the summer now. I know you guys went through spring football, now in the midst of the summer workouts, kind of doing some more stuff on your own before you get into preseason camp in August. So, first of all, let's give the fans listening here just an opportunity to get to know you. We've got obviously a lot of football related stuff that we'll talk about here shortly. But first off, tell us a little bit about you growing up. You went to a high school that Gamecock fans are very familiar with based on some guys that they've had here in the past from your high school program. But where'd you grow up? Tell us about kind of your journey all the way up through high school.
Okay, yeah. So I was born in Greenville, South Carolina. And then at a young age, real young, around like 3 years old, I moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina, because my dad, he was in the Air Force, and so he got transferred there. And then in third grade is when I moved to Havelock, and then that's pretty much where I grew up. And then I went to Havelock High School, which was good. And then my first 2 years I was quarterback, playing quarterback, and then my around like third, fourth game, my junior season, I switched to defense, and then that's where I really started to get noticed at. And then that's when, after that season, I committed to South Carolina. And then my senior year, I played edge, and then right now I'm playing linebacker.
Yeah, good deal. So away from the field, and again, we'll get into the football stuff. What are some of the things you like to do just if you do get a little bit of downtime away from school? I think people forget sometimes you guys do have to go to class and all that stuff, but away from football, away from class, anything that you like to do? Just hang out with friends, family when you get a chance? So what are the activities like?
Yeah, really just when you do get time to relax, just either, chilling at home or probably with, some of the guys, because we are close and tight, so we do like to, hang out with, one another. So, yeah, really either that or like playing the game, something like that. Nothing too crazy.
What's the game situation like? Are you a 2K guy? Are you Madden? Are you college football? What's it like?
Right now, definitely college football. That's what I've been on. I used to be real big on Madden, but I started kind of switching to college football more when they started releasing their games back.
All right, so little honesty hour here. Do you play with the Gamecocks and put yourself out there, or do you have another team? You have like a secret team you like to play with, or?
I do always use the Gamecocks.
There you go.
And I have tried to put myself out there on the field, and it'll have you out there for a little bit, but eventually it'll switch you back out. But I've subbed myself in a couple times for sure.
That's got to be a crazy feeling, right? Like, because we didn't have college football game for a little bit, of course, and then it came back, fortunately. But I can't imagine like playing a video game and being like, that's me in there. Like, is that kind of weird the first time you did it? Like, that's my.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely a surreal moment, especially because I've always, like I said, Madden has been my thing since I don't know how old. So seeing that was definitely crazy.
Yeah, that's wild stuff. All right, so let's go back a little bit to the high school journey. So, you mentioned Havelock High School. Man, you guys have had some awesome teams over the years. And I remember the first time Havelock came onto my radar was covering recruiting like the 2010, 2011 like type era. Guys that you'll remember, coming up, Pharaoh Cooper, Corey Robinson, both those guys played for the Gamecocks. Darrell Scott, the running back who went to Tennessee. What did kind of coming up, did you pay attention to those guys and watch those guys? Like, were you even there, like, integrated into football yet? Like, was it a little bit too early?
When I got to Havelock, I think it was about 2015, and so those guys were kind of already did their thing, or like was maybe like at the end of it, and so I didn't really get to watch them like that. But I was able to talk to Pharaoh like before, I committed, just talking to him about college and making the right decisions, everything else. So did get some good information from him.
Yeah, some insight. So, you mentioned too, and I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to ask you about this. You played multiple positions, and I'd actually forgotten that you started out as a quarterback. So, first of all, do you still like to play around and start throwing the ball a little bit out there at practice? Like, you still got a pretty good arm, you think?
It's definitely not what it used to be, but because I have tried every once in a while. I do try to throw the ball around and just see what I got. And so it's still there, but it's not what it used to be, though. It needs a little bit more work.
Yeah, understandable. What was the reason that, whether it was you or your coaches there said, hey, we should probably play this kid on defense? Like, how did that come about, that switch?
It was really because on offense, they were trying to move more towards a different style. And so when it became available, the defensive coordinator, he was like, well, they would really like to use me on defense, and so after that, it was after, I think, the first game, I wasn't starting when I went out there, and then by the second game out there, I was starting.
How big of a transition was that, coming up, playing quarterback, playing that position, and then moving over to defense? I'm sure there was a learning curve, even at the high school level, and you obviously adapted very well and pretty quickly to that, but just how different was it once you started doing that?
It was definitely different, but luckily not anything too crazy, just because I've always, kind of been an athlete. So just growing up, I did play both ways. And so it wasn't like something completely new to me, but just, in my high school career, though, only playing quarterback and then switching to defense, just having to just really get back into it, what I mean? Just feel it back out. But after that, just being able to play like a losers.
At what point did, whether it was you or maybe one of your coaches or even somebody in your family, was it like, all right, I think I'm pretty good at this defense thing, and not only that, like, I might have an opportunity to go play in college? Like, did you have a feeling early? Did colleges start saying, hey, it's Donovan Darden kid, we like him, and then you started realizing it? How did that go?
Playing college football has always been my aspiration, so that was always a goal or a dream of mine. But I would say when I guess I really knew it could be more of a reality was about my sophomore year. At the beginning of the season, my sophomore year, Boston College started reaching out to me a little bit, and then from then it kind of opened up my mind on this, it can really be something real. And so, just it really just made me keep working harder, and then I got my first, official offer from UNC Charlotte, and that was like around the third game of me playing defense, and so. So yeah, but that's been pretty good.
Man, nice. Didn't take long. Edge, there were some recruiting services, I think, including our guys at On Three and now Rivals, who thought that you would be an edge player, at the college level. Do you miss that part of, like, and I know you get to pass rush some, blitz, all that with what you do at South Carolina, which we'll get into later, but do you miss, like, hey, put my hand in the ground, playing edge, like, all the time?
I would kind of say, I guess, yes and no, because, I did like, playing edge, and it was it was real good. But also linebacker is good too. It's just more of an adjustment from what I used to play. So just having to get used to that. But after that, it's been good too. So I guess more at the beginning, a little bit more, yes, but now not as much.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you about that transition, and also, what you liked about South Carolina once they got involved in your recruiting. So we'll do that here in just a second. Hanging out with Donovan Darden here on the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. All right, everybody, let's tell you about our friends over at Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. As always, the presenting sponsor of the Garnet Trust Hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays here on the game. Krantz Cooling and Heating has been providing great HVAC services to Midlands residents and businesses since 1983. And now that same great service that you're accustomed to for your heating and your air conditioning now applies to the plumbing line. You can hit them up at 803-672-3224. You can also go to their website at krantzcooling.com. That's Krantz, cooling with a K.com. You can text them directly from their website. Let them know about what HVAC issues you're seeing at your home or business, what plumbing problems you're having. They'll schedule an appointment, come out, take care of it. Shout out to Justin Krantz, the general manager there. They do an incredible job. They've been out to my home in Wes's. Let them come out to yours. krantzcooling.com. All right, welcome back in. It's the Garnet Trust Hour here on The Game, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Chris Clark hanging out with you, and I'm hanging out also with Donovan Darden, linebacker from Gamecock Football. And Donovan, we were talking there earlier about, your recruiting process, playing multiple positions in high school. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with South Carolina, how they got involved with you. You mentioned your first offer came from Charlotte, like third game of your sophomore year, hadn't even been playing defense that long, and obviously your game continued to grow. How did South Carolina get involved, and how did that process go, leading you to commit to them ultimately?
Yes, I would say South Carolina, they did come in fairly early too, so that also was something that kept me, to South Carolina, because they did see something in me early as well, and like as a bigger school, they were, the first SEC school to offer me, and so they were in the picture early, and then also just throughout the recruiting process, getting to know more, not just about the school, but just about Coach Beamer and Coach White, and then getting down there and being able to check out all the facilities and talk to some of the players and just start to really fill out the culture, which we're big on here, and then these you can really feel it once you get here. It's like it really is what it seems like, and so I would say yeah, just start the recruiting process, just starting to really get a feel for South Carolina, and then talking to Coach Beamer, talking to Coach White, and then their vision for me, and then Coach Beamer's vision for the program itself, really just attracted me to South Carolina.
I'm curious, when it's time, someone like you who had a lot of options and, a lot of good options, frankly, that you could have taken your talents to in college, when you're sitting down, your family, and you're trying to decide, like, all right, I want to make a decision. I need to make a decision on where I'm going to go. How did you handle that part? Did you go mainly off of feel? Did you make like a pros cons list? Like what all did you do to arrive at that decision?
Yeah, it was definitely taking everything into consideration, and then me and my parents, talking everything out, and yeah, it was a pros and cons list, and then just really going over everything, and then the overall feel, just when you're there is also a big deal too, and so South Carolina just was checking all the right boxes, and so once I got down to my main ones, it just I knew the right place to go.
So one of the aspects, obviously, of going to South Carolina, and I know they weren't the only school recruiting you as a linebacker, but, switching positions again from, like you said, playing edge your senior year of high school to playing linebacker. What did you think about that transition going in? Like, hey, here's what I'm going to need to focus on. Here's how hard or easy it's going to be versus, what you actually saw when you got to Columbia and started learning that position at the SEC level.
I would say just from the advice that I got from previous players and just being around them, I kind of was able to get an idea of what it was going to be like, and so kind of prepare for it. But just of course, when you're here as a freshman, when you're on the field for the first time, and then going out there and practice, really get a good feel for it then. But so it's nothing that could, really replicate that, but, just get used to it and adjust to it, and then, you get better as time goes on, and then, it's a big business.
So last season, you played in 10 games, actually, mostly on special teams. First game, I think, was against SC State. What was that feeling like of actually getting on the field for first time? Like you mentioned, playing college football was a goal of yours, and you can't really do it at a higher level than going, SEC, maybe Big Ten, and so you've done that. So did you have that feeling of like, man, like I'm here, like I made it? What was that moment like?
It was definitely surreal, and especially in our stadium, because that was one of the main things that attracted me also is coming to the games and then the fans and how involved they are and just the atmosphere they create is crazy. And so just being able to experience that and get on the field, it was definitely a crazy feeling. But and also getting to travel, everything else was just, not necessarily like a dream come true, but just it all coming together. So
yeah, all the hard work paying off. So now that you've been in this system for, because you enrolled early, right? You're enrolled last January, so you were able to go through last spring, winter workout program last spring, summer, season. Now you've had another off-season program in spring. Like how much progress do you feel like you've made from when you got here January 2025 to now sitting here June 2026, just in terms of like how you feel physically, what you look like, comfort level playing linebacker, and comfort level with this scheme?
I would say it's a huge difference for sure. Especially when it comes to scheme, just being a second year player, you get more understanding, and then it's just also the reps on the field are big too. Just being able to go out there and play and not just go over it, in a room. And so that's big. So definitely on schemes, and then also just adjusting to playing linebacker and everything that comes with it. I definitely say it's a big difference, and just still working on everything and still continuing to get better, but definitely not.
A couple more football questions as we close out. First thing is, y'all are practicing against an offense with Coach Briles that has, a new scheme. And one thing we've heard a lot about is the tempo that they run. How has that been going against that in practice every day?
It's very helpful, I would say, because it definitely, I feel like going against their tempo and getting that just in practice, every day, it can't get any much harder than that. And so just going at that tempo, play after play after play, it definitely catches up with you. And so I think it's good for us, though, as a defense to experience that. And so we're already prepared for that going into the season, just, anybody that has that. So I would say it's been very helpful, but definitely a task going against it, though.
One of the things that Coach Beamer's talked about, and all the other coaches and all the players we've had a chance to hear from and have here on the show, is like, obviously last season was disappointing, like from a record standpoint, right? But what has the mentality been of, not only the defense, but the special teams, which you played last year, and just this team in general in terms of pulling in the same direction, like to get this thing, turned around and get the results that you want? What's the vibes been like in the locker room and just away from the field and on the practice field too?
I would say everybody's hungrier. I would say, like, not that we weren't locked in last year, but just, having that bad taste in your mouth after the season, knowing what we could have been and just how it ended up, and then how in a lot of those games we were kind of right there, and until we weren't, and then so really just coming in with a focused mindset and hungry, and really just wanted to show everybody what we can do.
Good stuff, man. Last thing for you, any goals that you have, personally, that you kind of want to get accomplished here in the summer before you hit the field again in preseason camp? Anything you're really focusing in on and honing in on?
Really just focusing on the scheme, just really knowing the ins and outs, and really just getting more of a feel for that. Just continue to get better, every day.
All right, that's Donovan Darden, linebacker from Gamecock football, here on the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. Donovan, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for joining us. Wishing you all the best this season.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling, Heating, and Plumbing. It's our head and Chris Clark wrapping up the hour here on your Thursday on the game. Again, you just heard Chris's conversation with second-year linebacker Donovan Darden for Gamecock football. Again, a guy that primarily played on special teams when he did see the field a season ago. But, you know, listen to that conversation you had with him, and you mentioned him coming out of Havelock, North Carolina, which is a place that you guys talk about a lot, you know, being a pretty big hotbed for talent. You mentioned guys like Pharaoh Cooper, you know, coming out of there. What's so significant or special about that place that produces as much talent as it seems to?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I think, you know, one thing is there's a lot of, and Donovan mentioned this too, you know, his father being in the Air Force. So they do have people that move to that area, you know, for that reason. And so sometimes they have kids who grew up there. Sometimes they have kids who, you know, moved in there. But there was a little spell where Havelock had lots of talent, you know, on an annual basis. And I still remember, you know, seeing Pharaoh Cooper at the Shrine Bowl. He started out as like a 2-star prospect to look like maybe he's going to go to like East Carolina. Gamecocks take him. There was conversation, will he be a DB? Will he be a receiver? You know, obviously ended up playing him at receiver and did very well for himself at South Carolina. And then, of course, in the NFL, ended up being a 4-star kid, you know, a huge riser in the rankings, really, really good player. But yeah, Donovan, one of the later guys to come out of there, and man, he was a heck of a prospect too. You know, you look at him, he was a 4-star guy, according to Rivals industry ranking, which is, of course, the average of all the major recruiting services, had him as a 4-star, you know, top 175 guy in the country, played multiple positions throughout his high school career. And, you know, really, Tyler, I think fits the bill of what South Carolina has been recruiting lately at linebacker. You know, there was a point early in the Beamer tenure, linebacker was an area where they needed to get better in terms of the athleticism, the body types, the versatility. And there was kind of just this switch flipped to where then you're getting guys like Darden, you're getting guys like Justin Okoronkwo as a transfer, J.R. Johnson, these big kids who some of them look like they can play defensive end, you know, yet they can run, they're versatile, they can cover, they can blitz, and Donovan's one of those. So I think his, you know, as a true freshman, played in several games, I think 10 games last year, like you said, mostly on special teams. Is he going to be a starter this year? No. Carolina has their top 3 guys back from last season, which is a great thing, but I do think his development is going to be important if he can get on the field some this season in the short term, because you're looking at this thing as a possibility of losing some of that talent, whether it's Sean Murphy as a senior, maybe losing some guys early to the draft, depending on how the season goes. And this is a guy that you're going to need not just for the short term for depth and special teams, but also into the future too at linebacker.
Well, and again, injuries are always something that you hope you don't have to deal with. But one of those guys goes down. One of those main guys goes down between Murphy, Johnson, and Okoronkwo. He could be, you know, getting his number called. Now, again, we hopefully don't have to find ourselves in that situation, but you can never control those things, obviously. And again, a guy that's stuck around for a second year, more time to develop and all that kind of stuff. We'll see how big of a stride he's made going into this upcoming season, and if he can find his way onto the field more and more of a traditional defensive sense, not just on special teams.
Yeah, big kid. When he was recruited, listed at 6'4", 225. Now, 6'4", 242, right, is what he's listed at. And when you see him, he's one of those guys where you go, man, he's 240-something pounds. Like, he doesn't even really look it in a good way. You know, he's still long, lean, but he's got some weight on him. You know, certainly with what he did in high school, playing with his hand down some, transitioning to linebacker, this is a kid that's going to bring you potentially some pass rush type juice, getting after the quarterback, getting into the backfield when he is used in a blitz or pass rush type capacity. For him, it was just about learning, you know, the ins and outs of playing linebacker, you know, and he's got an interesting perspective because in high school he played quarterback, so he's been on the offensive side of the ball. He's been kind of all over the place. He's got the special teams background now, working last season with Shane Beamer and the staff on special teams. the physical tools for Donovan Darden, I think, are there. It's just about him taking that next step. And for a guy transitioning to Power 4 SEC linebacker for the first time, there is a learning curve there, and he talked about that, just learning how to play the position. I think you couldn't expect too much too early for him there, especially with some guys who are more veteran ahead of him. But into the future, I think he's a player that's exciting in terms of, his physical upside.
Wasn't Demetrius Knight also a high school quarterback too?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, kind of a common
He
theme.
was.
Kind of a common theme at linebacker.
Yeah, and I obviously should have mentioned him as one of those guys when that switch flipped into the types of kids you're recruiting. Demetrius Knight, another kid who, he looked like your prototypical linebacker, but I remember the first few plays we saw Demetrius Knight play, you go, okay, and he created a lot of buzz in the offseason. He could run. I mean, for his size, he could really, really run. And so there's been a premium on that athleticism at the linebacker position. And Darden's, the latest. He's one definitely to file away, for future. This is the type of kid that you want to bring into the program to develop and then see how things progress.
We'll see what kind of factor he can have on the season coming up here in just 86 days. We'll get into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour coming up next, back into Kevin Schnall's contract and our 86 days trivia question as well. Coming up next here on your Thursday on the Game.
Gamecock Nation, my name is Kevin Schnall, your new head baseball coach. You are such a valuable part of our success moving forward. We need you back in Founders Park to make this one of the most electric venues in college baseball.
Welcome into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you here on your Thursday, being introed by who we can officially now say is officially the new South Carolina head baseball coach, Kevin Schnall, as it became official yesterday. Contract was announced. We'll get into those details coming up in a moment. Got a big intro party coming up tonight or tomorrow night over at Founders Park. I don't know if Kevin Schnall picked Party Like a Rock Star as the background music, but I'd say it fit the vibe pretty well.
Well, it really fit the vibe tomorrow night, I feel like. So we're not getting your typical just press conference, stuffy kind of, we're going to ask some questions from the media people and then move along. We got a little party going on. So very, very cool. Also, Tyler, breaking news, Kevin Schnall has posted a thank you to Coastal Carolina this morning. So some of you can stop going after him for that. He was never going to post a thank you before he was officially hired. Can we just, good Lord. Just because it's happening and it's reported and we all know it's happening, no coach is going to thank their previous employer until that contract is officially signed by everyone, approved by the Board of Trustees, I should say, and that did not happen until shortly after 4 o'clock yesterday. And then, guess what? The very next morning at 9:31 a.m., a letter to Till Nation.
And look, I can understand the frustration Coastal fans have about losing their head coach, but you're right. Until the ink is dry, until all of his banking information has been confirmed by South Carolina, so the direct deposit will start hitting very, very soon. He's going to hold off on saying thank you or saying goodbye to anything until he knows with 1,000% certainty he is indeed the new baseball coach here at South Carolina. But you knew at some point he was going to say something, but yes, you have to let all the other things work out first before you say your goodbyes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Wes and I were texting about that this morning. Like the faux outrage or the real outrage over that was kind of illustrates where social media is right now, right? So he did it. Everybody can move on. But I think, guys, and look, we're firmly in the excitement / win the press conference phase. You haven't heard the press conference yet. We will tomorrow night, as you said, Tyler. But honestly, a lot of this stuff is important, I think, because we spent a lot of this season talking about A, the results that have been so poor the past 2 years. B, once it was evident there's going to be a coaching change, who is it going to be? But C, we also talked about, okay, in addition to the coach, what else do you have to fix about this baseball program? The fan engagement part has been a huge aspect of that. We all know that, getting a new coach, winning games, those are the things that are ultimately going to put butts in the seats and turn Founders Park back into the type of atmosphere that everybody has wanted and has frankly been accustomed to with this baseball program. But I think it's some of the things that they've done in the early going are really cool and they're really important, to help generate that excitement. Like you said, Wes, not having a stuffy, let's get all the important people in the media in a room and have a press conference. They're going to do that. But having a fan event, having fireworks at Founders Park, having Schnall put out a video that is a very short video that's catered to one thing, which is, hey, fans, we need you to come out to Founders Park and help us build this thing, right? Making fans feel like they have ownership of the program. The games, the results, that's ultimately what's going to matter once they start getting played. But until then, how can you generate more fan excitement just beyond, hey, we got a new coach, here he is? Some of these things that they're doing, I think, are really cool.
Yeah, I think, Chris, when you look at this hire, too, if you ask me, Kevin Schnall is not going to be a win the press conference guy at his core. I don't think this is someone, from what I've seen so far and what I've been told, he's not going to put more attention on winning the presser than he does on winning games. Like you know what I'm saying? Now, I do think there's a certain amount of excitement that is going to be built into this regardless, because South Carolina, they see the pedigree, they see the resume. Fans are excited, and, you know, I think that's where it's going to be up to what is an awesome just media team over there at South Carolina to kind of fill in the gaps in terms of some of this other stuff, because I think in Kevin Schnall, like, yeah, he'll sit there, he'll answer questions, he'll have some zingers along the way, but for the most part, this is a guy whose single and total focus is, I'm here to win games. And so I'll be very curious to see, you know, what does this press conference look like? What do we get out of him? I know our friends, if you're on Gamecock Plus, which I think if you're a Gamecock Club, you know, member, I think you probably already have access to that. They have a sit down with Schnall that they just posted this morning, which is kind of, I guess, the first official post hiring sit down. I'm gonna check that out here as soon as we get off the air. But I'll be very curious just to see what comes out of the press conference. But for the most part, this guy is totally built towards let's do what we need to do to win games. And so I do think at a place like South Carolina, the press conference, the answering the questions, all that stuff does matter to an extent, but you really just have to hold serve in that area of this job if you're taking care of that first thing, and that's just winning games on the field.
Yeah, the press conference is about saying the right things, generating that fan interest. And look, it's going to be a party thing tomorrow night over at Founders Park. Free admission, free concessions. I saw that as well. They'll have fireworks, the whole 9 yards. So it'll be a nice celebration. I believe Jack said that this is what Mississippi State did when they brought in Brian O'Connor a year ago. So maybe kind of taking a page from their book in terms of introducing a coach in a more exciting way than just the standard press conference like we had with Maneri a couple years ago. So certainly excited for that. And again, the fan base will wait and see what the results are, but plenty of reasons to be excited going into the 2027 season. Yesterday, the Board of Trustees did meet to finally approve the contract of Kevin Schnall. He'll be making $1.3 million annually to start out, which is almost triple what he was making at Coastal Carolina. And when we talk about all those reasons that he had to stay at Coastal, being a lifer, playing there, being an assistant there for a long time, eventually becoming the head coach and taking them all the way to the cusp of almost winning the national championship a year ago, it would take a lot to pry him away from a job like that. But when you're in the same state, when you're a program with the tradition and history that Carolina has, and when you can offer him that much in addition to the resources that he didn't have at Coastal Carolina, that's a hard thing to say no to. And again, we'll hear more answers and more explanations from Schnall in the next day or so, especially with that press conference coming up tomorrow night. But, you know, that's about where we thought that salary would be with him, and it's exactly what they were paying Paul Maneri here at Carolina as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a – sometimes there's like that sticker shock. You're like, wait, what? I don't really think there was much of that. Like, if you've been paying attention to what Maneri was making and to, frankly, what it costs these days to do business, you know, at the SEC level in baseball as well, that was about maybe what we expected. And here's the thing, guys. Like, I can certainly see why Coastal fans are still upset about it, but I mean, there's so many different reasons why you take this job if you're Kevin Schnall. And these SEC jobs in baseball, they don't come around all that often, you know? And I think like there was some chatter, and I think it's true, but there was some chatter. He's always had his eyes on the Florida job. And so, yeah, you know, Sully may hang it up next year. You'll be on a short list probably if you're Kevin Schnall. There's no guarantee. There was no guarantee that South Carolina was even going to offer him the job. You know what I'm saying? So to have the offer and to have this chance to be an SEC coach in the conference that is the most competitive in baseball, the conference that is the most high-paying in baseball, and that has the most resources in terms of building your roster. I mean, then you also, guess what? You don't have to leave the state you've lived in. You can go, like, you can actually keep your family down at the beach if they want to stay there.
Yep.
And still, you know, work here, get a condo, however you want to do it. It's a little bit different than potentially going to Knoxville like he very nearly did last year. So I just got to imagine, man, it's easy to sit there and think, well, Tennessee was after him last offseason. South Carolina's after you this. It's easy to start to think, well, it's going to be like that every year. The second you have a down year in sports these days, people forget about you, man. Because think about how much it is about selling a hire to your fan base. And, man, the second that you have a down year and then another job opens, those fans are going to be like, oh, well, that guy didn't even make the tournament this year. So I think just so many reasons on both sides of it make sense. And I think that a lot of the Coastal fans, once they, sit back and digest this, probably will get that. I just think it was a long process if you were following it because of the incorrect reports. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you were a Coastal fan, this thing felt long because you thought he was leaving a week ago, even though he wasn't.
Yeah. And I think most of the people that look, Kevin Schnall is not even taking, like you said, the Tennessee job. He's not going and taking another Sun Belt job and looking for an exit. I think when you look at what he said, that's not just a line when he said it was going to take a great opportunity to leave Coastal. He had a great opportunity to go take an SEC job last year and didn't do it. There's not a lot of people that would have turned down that opportunity, and he did. So this was the right fit at the right time. Most of those people that are giving him a hard time about it, I would imagine they're just upset about losing a coach in general, right? There's nothing nefarious about how he went about this. He was offered a great opportunity and decided that it was an opportunity that he couldn't turn down. An opportunity that nearly triples your salary or may triple your salary after incentives.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to keep your family in the state. You're at the top level of baseball at a great program. That is no disrespect in the way the process was handled to Coastal Carolina, right? Most people, if they had a similar opportunity in whatever line of work they were in, would probably do something very similar, right? So, was going to take a big opportunity to leave, and that's exactly what he got.
Well, and, we played the clip of him being asked about the Carolina job when they got eliminated in Tallahassee a week and a half ago, and he never at any point said, yes, I'm definitely staying at Coastal. I'm the coach here for ever and ever. He said, I'm the coach now. Here's what we've accomplished. Here's what we're doing, and here's what we have. Again, we said it last week. It was not a denial, which still left the door open for him to come to South Carolina, and now he has. And I do understand the frustration of Coastal fans, and it doesn't help that 6 players immediately join him hours after he gets announced or hours after it's confirmed that he's going to be the head coach. So that just opens up that wound a little bit more. But like you said, post the thank you to them for the basically 25-ish years that he was there between being a player, an assistant coach, and eventually a head coach. And again, that wound will heal as time goes along. But I can understand the frustration. But we all know why he took this job, and we're excited to see what happens starting next year.
Yeah, and man, frankly, as much as it also stinks, guys are going to hit the portal, and they're going to follow their coach. That's just where we are right now. And that's part of it, And a lot of those guys, maybe they hit the portal because their coach is leaving anyway. So what's he supposed to do? Be like, no, I'm not gonna take you because of some, made up morality. It's just not a thing anymore. If guys hit the portal and they played for you, if you're Schnall and you think they can help, you kind of owe it to your current employer to bring them in. That's just like, hey, if Coastal were to hire a sitting head, now if I'm them, I probably try to go get Lamonis.
Right.
But if they were to hire a sitting head coach, he'd probably bring some players too.
86 days until kickoff trivia coming up next, and again the introduction of Kevin Schnall tomorrow night over at Founders Park. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Thursday here on the game. We'll get into Gamecock football's broadcast windows coming up here in a few minutes. We are 86 days away from the season getting started. It means it's another round of trivia for the number 86. Right now, Wes and Chris are tied with 2.5 points apiece. You guys have answered 4.5 out of the 10 questions right so far. So, Wes, what do you believe today's question is about? I told you guys the general nature of what this question is.
What was the general nature again?
About the 1986 season and historic losses.
1986 season and historic losses.
Sounds like somebody didn't study.
No, teacher.
I did some studying.
I've
I've got a guess as to what it is. I don't know if I get to.
All right, great. Yeah, you sound confident. Why don't you jump in and give it a guess?
Yeah, you give a guess on what you think this question is.
Well, I think it relates to a very bizarre loss that South Carolina had to, drumroll, Tyler's Georgia Bulldogs in 1986. Is that right?
You might be onto something. Do you want to take a guess at what the answer is going to be?
Name of the South Carolina player who recovered the fumble?
No, not quite.
Okay.
But that does pertain to what the question is. And I think Chris is going to have a really good shot at getting this right, considering the fact that he knew this. What rule in 1986 prevented South Carolina from beating Georgia on the final play of that game?
Can't advance a fumble on 4th down.
No. Oh. Chris, would you like to take a stab at it?
Well, let me run down the whole thing since I studied pretty well. So Georgia quarterback James Jackson.
Yep.
As they were trying to run out the clock, he was trying to run out the clock with 4 seconds left. Georgia was up by like 5, I think. And he ran backwards after he took the snap. And instead of just, I don't know, falling down or throwing the ball in the stands or whatever, he decided to drop the ball at like the Georgia 12-yard line. And then Norman Floyd for South Carolina picked it up, ran it in for what the fans and maybe some of the players assumed was the game-winning touchdown. But the rule was he could not advance that ball. And so thus the play was just dead there. South Carolina did technically recover, but since they couldn't advance it, the clock had expired. Game over. Georgia wins. Tyler's happy, even though he wasn't born.
Chris got it exactly right, and here's what it sounded like back in 1986.
Here's Jackson, just wants to run out the clock and hold the ball. He's done it. This one's over. He fumbles, and you can't advance the fumble. The crowd is going crazy, but the fumble would have had to been in the air. And all he had to do was lay the ball on the ground, and it was over.
I don't think I would advise doing that.
No, and I'm sure Vince Dooley's going to tell him, too.
Oh, that's amazing.
South Carolina will recover what is technically a fumble. I think that's the way it'll go down in the stats, but the game is over.
In doing my research for this, many people said that was maybe the most South Carolina thing that could have ever happened in that game.
I have so many thoughts. First of all, phenomenal job by the announcers being all over it, not getting
immediately.
Not getting caught up in the moment. Can't advance a fumble. That was my first thought. Second thought was the dry. Would not advise that though. Hilarious. Third thought, yes, that is some Gamecock stuff right there. And what was my final thought, guys? My final thought is, when did that rule change?
1990. So 4 years later, you could then advance fumbles regardless of if you caught it in the air or not. If James Jackson had tossed it towards the ground and somebody picked it up and ran it, then or the ball had bounced off the ground and then into someone's hands, they could have run it in. But
because that's basically an interception at that point.
Well, it can bounce on the ground. So you could, if you caught it in the air as a fumble, then I believe you could have advanced it.
Even if it hit the ground?
I believe so. Don't quote me on that.
No, that's a fumble. I think it's got a, right?
I think. Don't quote me on that. But in 1990, they finally said, regardless of how the ball ends up on the ground, if it's moving or not, then you can pick it up and run it in. So it was not a direct rule change the next year for South Carolina.
Should have changed the rule right there on the field. But the other thing is, Chris, did you know this story before you did this research? Like, I feel like among Gamecock lore, this does not have the place it should have. Like, I guess because everybody just knew the rule at the time. To us, we're like, wait, that's a stupid rule. But it's just like, if you're used to it being the rule for decades, you don't even blink at it. But
see, the reason I ask is because I thought it would be a part of more of the lore of, like, man, can you believe that heartbreaking loss back in '86 because of the way the rule was written at that point in time? I thought that would be something everybody had more of a collective memory of.
No, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard that story. But
yeah, if I had heard it, it was in the deepest, darkest recesses. I definitely had to do some research. I had a feeling that was going to be it.
I would not advise
I think Carolina had a bunch of close losses that season from what I saw.
Yep. So that loss to Georgia was by 5 points. They lost to number 3 Nebraska when Todd Ellis threw a interception in the red zone, and they tied against Clemson after missing a 31-yard field goal with about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, and had a better season the next year. It kind of built the foundation. But I had a feeling just because of once I saw that play, Tyler's Georgia Bulldogs, I was like, that's definitely the question. But you're right, Wes. Like, there are a lot of like, of course, the LSU game in 24 is going to live in infamy. You've got the push off, right? Play against Clemson, Rod Gardner. That's one. There are others, but this one should probably have more of a place. And what, now that you can look at it, look back on it, like, why was that rule in place? It's an incredibly stupid rule. Like, if the offense fumbles and the defense picks it up, you're basically, almost rewarding the offense by not allowing the other team to advance the ball any further, right? So whether it's laying the ball down, which was an incredibly dumb play, it didn't matter in this instance because the clock was running out. But whether you get the ball knocked loose, whether you drop it on the ground like the Georgia quarterback did, like, I just don't understand the line of thinking and why. And nowadays, guys, we see this, like, if there's a controversial happening in a game, like think about South Carolina and the T-bar again in the bowl, it's pretty quickly that the rule gets changed, or there's a clarification. This thing took 4 years.
Yeah,
to change it. That's remarkable.
I'm sure James Jackson got a stern talking to by Vince Dooley in the locker room after that game.
Yeah, I would think so.
Tyler, when you were gathering that, was that just audio or you saw the play?
Oh, it's on YouTube. I saw the play. Because he's kind of scrambling, flailing, looks up, sees the clock's at 0, and just kind of like puts the ball on the ground.
Wait, so he knew the rule?
He knew the rule. Yeah.
And just did, so it wasn't like he accidentally fumbled. He
intentionally put it on the ground.
Okay.
And
he was like celebrating.
Yeah.
Like, kind of spinning the ball almost.
It was very odd.
I think, but that changes it a little bit because if the rule was different, he's not doing all that.
I still wouldn't advise it. So yeah, I'm sure you got a nice talking to after that one. We'll hit broadcast windows coming up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the Game.
All right, if you want to be like Tyler and go watch old football games from the 80s, why not do it on a brand new TV from our friends over at Integrated Media in Chapin, South Carolina, but serving homes throughout the Midlands. 803-948-8327 or integratedmediainc.com is where you can go for way more information about all their great services. They've been to my house. They've been to Chris's. Let them come to your house as well and upgrade your home into a smart home. Make everything run right there on a tablet. That can be your TV. That can be your audio. That can even be additional security and cameras to upgrade the peace of mind that you have at your house. Maybe it's something as simple as like hanging the TV, hiding some wires, and going with some surround sound in the living room. Or maybe it's going all in on that man cave that you've been dreaming about in that extra room, or something in between. If that sounds of interest to you, hit up our friends today at Integrated Media. That's 803-948-8327.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris with you on your Thursday here on the game. Real quick, do you guys have any suggestions for 85 tomorrow? Any 85s that stand out to you guys?
Ooh. Hey, we need some crowdsourcing, don't we, Wes?
Yeah. Trying to think. Who's our current 85, Tyler?
Do we have a current 85? Let's see. That's a good question.
You know, I've got a random 85 for US that I think, didn't Kane Whitehurst wear 85 at least
nice.
at some point?
Yes, good pull. Good
That
pull.
was a pretty good pull.
Would that be question worthy?
I don't know. Maybe we can ask the people. There's no 85 right now.
Okay, no 85.
Yep, no 85 on the roster.
Man, these 80 numbers Like,
these are tough.
Like
Yeah.
the 80s, I feel like when I was really young, if you were like a stud NFL receiver, like 80 was still like a cool number. You know what I'm saying? Now, all the college guys want to do the low numbers, I feel like.
Yep. Agent Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 1. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Classic receiver numbers in the 80s kind of have gone out of style, unfortunately. Everybody, like you said, wants to be single digits. They're like the teens, the 17s, 14s, those kind of things. You know, bring back tradition. Be a wide receiver in the 80s. I'll figure it out. We'll come up with something. Let me know.
Crowdsource that, though.
Yeah, let me know in 85. Firehouse Subs text line 803-404-6100. Well, again, we're 86 days away from the season starting for Carolina. We've known the first 3 kickoff times for a few weeks now, and we learned yesterday on the SEC Network. By the way, did anybody know about this? Jack and I were talking about this earlier. I didn't see this until like a tweet at 4 o'clock advertising this special being on the network last night. Did anybody else know about this before yesterday?
No. Absolutely not.
Chris?
No. I knew that they were going to come out probably this month, but, and is that a me problem? Did I miss the advertise? But I feel like there wasn't a lot of fanfare with this thing.
Yeah, I was like, maybe I haven't been watching enough SEC Network these past couple weeks to see a commercial for it, but it just kind of popped up random, like, oh, okay, they'll announce those coming up later tonight. And again, we don't know the exact kick times. These are broadcast windows, but it does give you a better idea of around the time that these games are going to be taking place after week number 3. And for South Carolina, you've gotten a couple of night options at Alabama and then, only one confirmed night game. A lot of flex games, though. Kentucky at home, Oklahoma on the road on Halloween, Arkansas on the road late in the season, then Georgia at home in the penultimate week of the regular season. All flex options. And this amount of flexes kind of tells me that, depending on how good Carolina is, they have the opportunity to play a lot of primetime games. If they're not as good, maybe some 4:15 kicks on the SEC Network.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, because I have to remind myself this as well, flex means you are going to be between afternoon or night.
Correct.
So you're at least eliminating the early window with that. And the other thing that stands out about this schedule, which I feel like with everything else that's happened, have y'all had a chance to really dive into this schedule? Like I don't know if I know on June 11th as much about the schedule itself as we typically do. And maybe it's because the schedules used to just be set so far out, it seems like, and now there's been so many changes. We're going to 9 games, obviously, in SEC schedule, so everything got shifted again. I feel like I'm just not as – I don't know as much about the schedule as I typically do by this point in the off season.
I feel like we haven't spent as much time dissecting it as maybe we have in seasons past, and that'll come as the summer goes along. But yeah, maybe not as familiar with this schedule as we've been in maybe years past.
At least we haven't dissected it at all. But there's some things that catch your eye here, and one is that you're playing Georgia on November 21st. Like that just feels wrong to me, and. We've done away, obviously, with the playing a cupcake before the rival, and, but Georgia, November 21st just feels so late in the year. Again, like Tyler said, it's another flex. And, I think it's even with the windows being like they are right now, it is more information than it used to be. So that's good, but still a lot of there's a big difference between a night game and a 4 o'clock game. So we'll see. I'm with y'all though. I completely missed the memo. They were even announcing this yesterday. I don't know if we were so in our baseball search bubble that it's just been overshadowed, or if nobody was really talking about this. But it was definitely not something that I feel like South Carolina fans were really attuned to at all.
Yeah, I think and there are so many flex windows, like you said, Tyler, that. You can't get a full handle, but there's a couple things that stand out, right? Like, you've got a night game at Bryant-Denny to play Bama. You know that you're not going to have a night game at Florida down at the Swamp, which Does that help? I mean, certainly a night game atmosphere, and they're going to have a first-year coach, so probably be more excitement than there has been lately there. That's already a tough place to play, which we've seen. Even when Florida's been down at times, that's been a tough place for South Carolina and others. I mean, just ask Texas recently. That's been a tough place to play, right? So I do think, like very early takeaway, and this doesn't really have to do anything with the game times, but as you do try to go really early through the schedule, and you're right, like it's harder to know things about all these teams because of the portal era, right? Like you have a hard enough time just saying, all right, does Florida still have that guy that started for them last year? Who did they get in the portal, et cetera? I do think very early look at the schedule. The first half is, I think, what you would call more manageable. The back half is your murderer's row, right? Like you look at the first 6 games, Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State, 3 straight home games. We think Mississippi State's probably at the back half of the conference. Bama, South Carolina has matched up. They haven't won the past 2 years, but they matched up well. You got Kentucky at home with a first-year head coach. You got Florida on the road, early game, with a first-year head coach, right? And then the thing flips, Tennessee at Oklahoma, A&M at Arkansas, Georgia, Clemson to close out the season. And so I think very early takeaway, if you're South Carolina and you're going to have the type of season that you want, you really need to come out of September, mid-October. You need to come out of that thing 5-1, 6-0, ideally. We've seen some wacky stuff in the SEC. We've seen teams beat top 10 teams and then go lose to Kentucky or go lose to Florida, right? If you're South Carolina, you're going to have to build in a really nice buffer for yourself in the first half of that schedule, I think.
Yeah, certainly so. Again, the broadcast windows released for this upcoming season. Again, you have 1 guaranteed night game at Alabama, 4 flexes between Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Georgia, 2 in the afternoon window at Texas A&M and Tennessee. One thing noticeably absent from this, I'll tell you about on the other side. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris, along with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris with you on your Thursday here in the game, talking broadcast windows for Gamecock football as we learned the area of the day. All the games will be kicking off in after week number 3. Of course, we know the first 3 kickoff times already. And, guys, one thing that stands out to me that I think will excite a lot of people is, with the exception of the Kent State game, which is a 12:45 kick, no true nooners this year. So you're going to have, or at home at least, you'll have an early kick at Florida, which could be 12 or 12:45, but no dead-on noon kickoffs at home, which seems like that's the first time that's happened in a long while.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of like the road nooners, the road early ones, especially if you're watching at home. Get that game out of the way, then you can watch the rest of, hopefully you got a good 4 o'clock game, you got a good primetime game, and you can kind of watch the rest of the day. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Especially the early season noon games in Columbia, South Carolina, we all know are pretty tough. So love to avoid those. And this schedule is going to take on a pretty interesting, I guess, mind of its own once we see where all these flexes end up. You know what I'm saying? I've learned, though, people like variety.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you got all early kicks, people will start being like, why don't we have some here? Even as much as people love night games, there's such a commitment, there's such a time commitment, especially if you're coming, from either out of state or kind of the outward parts of the state. If you have too many night games, people will start saying, man, there's too many night games going on. So I think people ultimately just like for the times to be split up, sort of.
Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at this schedule, you're trying to find, if you're a South Carolina fan, what's our easiest path, right? Because this thing's tough. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. You've got 9 SEC games. You've got Clemson, and you're going to have to go play Clemson on the road. Now, you've had success there. Past 2 times you've been down there, day games, you've won those games. But you're trying to find a way of how can we create the best environment at home, generally at Williams-Brice. That's a night game. And then on the road, generally it's day games. But then I think you have to start thinking about, okay, you go play, a day game at Arkansas, and that's in the flex window, right? So I've been to a game in Fayetteville, 2022, the Rocket Sanders, when he was playing for Arkansas game. He killed South Carolina that day. You're sitting in there at 11 a.m. Kind of tough, you know, and you kind of wonder, is this tough on the team, right? So at a minimum there, you're going to get, a 2:30, something like that if you're in the earlier part of the flex window out in that time zone. But you're trying to find, hey, can we actually get a decent draw here? But as you pointed out, if South Carolina's kind of rolling, you might end up getting more night games if they're marquee games, and that can sometimes create tougher environments on the road. So, I think as we get more information as the season progresses, we'll learn more and more about this schedule. Heck, we still have a lot to learn about these teams, just in terms of the roster construction. We have a lot to learn about South Carolina.
Yep.
In terms of what they're going to look like in their roster construction. And I think we'll be hearing more on not only South Carolina, but all these other teams throughout the summer and, of course, into preseason camp. It's just so hard when, Wes, we get this question all the time. Hey, how's the team going to look? What do you think the record is this year? It's already hard enough to predict that in the past when college football and rosters were a lot more stable. I feel like it's become, with the amount of parity, the amount of player movement, it's become even tougher to do that now.
Do we view the 3:30 window differently now that it's not the CBS game of the week? Like, it's still like a good time of day, but I don't think it's quite the prestigious game that it once was. That seems to be more shifted towards like the 7:30 ABC game now that that's a part of the SEC, possible scheduling slate, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still think you get big-time games in. I think what we really miss is, honestly, the CBS music to open it.
That's true.
There's something about that just is, I don't know for y'all, but for me, is ingrained in my head that I'm about to, like, the CBS crew, that music, I'm like, I'm about to watch a top 10 matchup. And I feel like we're conditioned. And they tried to bring back like some ABC old school music from back in the day. Just doesn't quite hit the same, in my opinion.
Well, now you can get that music from Northwestern and Illinois.
You could
that doesn't
do that.
excite you?
You could do that. You could.
Watch out, Tyler. Brett Bielema, he's gonna tweet about you if he heard that.
Well, bring it on, Brett. I'm here for it.
Loves to complain.
Yeah.
Has lots of grievances.
Yeah, never did I expect South Carolina fans to have such a high level of hatred for Illinois prior to that bowl game, but here we are.
Yeah, Tyler in Columbia, just
You know what?
hammering Brett.
I should, if he has a call-in show, I should call into it and see if I can heckle him a little bit and get a rise out of him.
Oh, please! If you do that, please record it.
Well,
we'll play it on the show. We'll analyze it.
You know, I already did, or somebody with my name already did that to Dabo Sweeney, and that ended his, at least taking calls portion of that radio show. So maybe I can do the same thing for Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
So schools in orange, man. Something about schools in orange just disgust all of us, rightfully so.
Tyler in Columbia causing trouble again.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, we don't have a window for the Clemson game, but
we do not.
think people have a strong feeling that's probably going to be a nooner because that's just kind of how that's gone up there these past handful of years.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see on that.
Yeah, I mean, in South Carolina's it's at some point you'd love for the Gamecocks to be able to get a win at Williams-Brice against Clemson. It's been since, 2013?
Yep.
Couldn't get it done this past year, but you got them on the road. You beat them the past 2 times there. That's going to be another interesting one for sure this year.
Yep, we'll find out about that kick time sometime later, so we'll see. But anything else to add, Wes?
Yeah, I was going to say our boy Jamie Bradford reporting that Monty Lee will be joining Chad Holbrook's staff at College of Charleston as an assistant. So
staying in the state.
He'll be the Cougars' assistant head coach. So that will be a return to Monty Lee's alma mater.
And he is still yet to coach outside of the state, correct?
I think that's right.
That is very impressive. So good for Monty Lee for finding his next opportunity. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with Scott Hamilton up next on your Thursday on the Game.
Events you remember your whole life. I'm Jason Reynolds. A serious injury changes your life too, in a very different way.
I'm Stephen Samuels. At the Samuels Reynolds Law Firm, we get you. We can't erase the injury or change the past, but we can get you through the pain and anxiety and help you on to a brighter future.
We get South Carolina because we're true South Carolina. Samuels Reynolds. True injuries, true lawyers. 803-779-4000.
The Gant family with Pioneer Tree Service has been taking care of trees in Columbia and surrounding areas for over 48 years. Pioneer Tree Service provides tree and shrub removal, pruning and thinning, tree planting, cabling and bracing, raising tree canopies, stump grinding and removal, storm damage services,